All right, how's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today we have with us George from CryptoSRS. George, thanks so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. The market's doing great. It's exciting. It's an exciting time. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, things are definitely picking up. More people are reaching out, getting into crypto, trying to advertise in crypto, wanting to see more videos. So I've been making more videos than ever, I think, over the last couple weeks. So I'm excited. First of all, for anyone that might not know you, I'm sure most people do know you, but for anyone that might not know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe about your channel and when you got into crypto, that kind of thing?
Sure. I was in IT for a while. I got burned by the 2008 crash, the housing crash, the bubble. Um, and then fast forward, basically around 2013 is when I picked up on Bitcoin. And I said those two things um, because since I was in IT, when I learned about Bitcoin, I'm like, okay, this is awesome. I kind of understand it, but like, how do I create it, right? So I was able to build mining rigs, and back then Bitcoin moved to A6 already, so I started mining Litecoin using GPUs. I was grabbing up as many as I can. It's kind of like how when Ethereum was still being mined, kind of like that. It was just very hot. So because I was in IT, I was able to get in, and also I talked about why how I lost a boatload of money in 2008. It's because I didn't really understand what long-term investing meant. Okay, back in the day. So when I got into Bitcoin, I'm like, okay, what is this really, right? And I tried to understand, and I kind of knew bits and pieces. A digital currency, decentralized, right? And you can self custody. I kind of knew those things, but I didn't understand long-term investing yet. So even though I got into Bitcoin around 2013, right at peak, right at 1,000, when I heard about it, I'm like, okay, let me get in, right? I'm in IT. I know how to build my mining rigs. I converted Litecoin to Bitcoin, and I was storing it. I didn't understand it truly like I do now.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, just like 2008, I sold out in 2014 when it was coming down. It just sucked. So fast forward to 2017, I saw Bitcoin come back to $1,000. And I'm like, man, I made a mistake. I fell for the same trap I did in 2008, when everything came down. I didn't understand. I panicked sold, didn't DCA, didn't buy the bottom. I should have with Bitcoin,
Yeah.
right? And with stocks, really. Like, I was not a long term investor. I was like a normal retail investor, just chasing the pump, chasing the gains. And I made a conscious decision to stop. So 2017, I get back in, and then I realized that, hey, the market's still young. I knew a little bit more than most people because I came in 2013. I educated myself more and then started my channel late in 2017.
Okay.
And then been running the channel since then, so been helping people learn about Bitcoin, educating and keeping them focused and a little bit entertained as well, I guess. And it has worked out.
Yeah. You talked about kind of jumping out of the market because you thought that it was going to continue falling, maybe coming back in a little bit later than you wished you had. I think a lot of people feel that way right now. What's your view on the market right now? Like, is it too late to buy? Is this a good time to be accumulating? What do you think?
The market's fantastic. This is a good day to be recording because Bitcoin is above 42,000 and the money is flowing in right now. Market is so hot. I've been saying this for a while, and a lot of people during the bear market, no one really listens, but I've been saying for a while, if you discount everything else out there, all the macro stuff, things that we had to worry about for a long time, like rates and the DXY and 10-year yield, stuff like that. If you discount all that and you discount even spot ETF approvals coming, right? If you just look at a 4-year cycle, Bitcoin has been doing the same thing over and over and over again. So that's a message that not a lot of people pay attention to during the bear market because all they look at is, wow, it's down for $69. But something else that people don't look at that I've been stressing a lot upon is look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin. And people don't understand what that means. I'm like, look at everything that you can measure Bitcoin by. The number of addresses, right? The number of holders, the supply that hasn't been moved in X amount of time. And it could be 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, right? You can also look at the hash rate. These are things that measure the strength of the network itself, and they are strong as ever. In fact, most of these metrics show that Bitcoin is at an all-time high. So I've been stressing these things for years now. Again, in a bear market, no one pays attention. Now, people are, right? And you compound the all-time metrics, the fundamentals of Bitcoin with the macro conditions, with spot Bitcoin ETF approval right around the corner, which will bring institutions in. I mean, man, how could you not be bullish at this point, right? So I'm very bullish. I don't think it's too late to get in. Bitcoin is not above its previous high. If Bitcoin was at 70,000 right now, then maybe I would say, hey, maybe, you should be a little bit more careful with your DCAs, right? Or maybe go a little bit smaller on the DCA. But right now, it's not the time. Bitcoin is still, even at 42,000, it's still off from 70,000. And most of the alts are still down 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. So it's definitely not too late to come into the market right now.
I've been saying a lot of the same stuff from the macro perspective. We have GDP rising. We have inflation coming down. We have probably rates coming down. So it's a perfect scenario. Everyone that thinks that we're in for a hard landing, I don't know where they're getting that. Also, you have the economics behind Bitcoin, or the tokenomics between the fact that there's been 93% of Bitcoin mined over the last 14, 15 years, and now we're going to 7% for the next 120 years. I figured out by 2060, there'll be less than 1 Bitcoin mined a day. People are going to lose more than 1 Bitcoin a day at that point. So I'm right there with you. I think that this is probably going to be one of the most bullish times that we've ever seen, and people aren't expecting it because Bitcoin's high. So this is like the crypto porn that everyone wants to know. What are the top 5 to 10 cryptos that you'd want to buy right now, or just some of your favorite cryptos in general?
I've always been a big believer of L1s because it just makes sense. L1s or L2s, they're the foundation for dApps, right? So obviously, not counting Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's always number one for me. But outside of Bitcoin, the top 5, I would say I stick with the L1s, L2s, because again, they are the base layer. They're the network protocol that supports the future dApps and games, which I think is going to be huge. But like for me, I still like ETH. A lot of people do not like ETH anymore because it's slow moving. But I think their demise is greatly exaggerated. I think they'll get their day. Solana, Avalanche, Polygon. These are ones I've been talking about forever. And they have come back slowly. Solana a little bit faster than others, but I think all these are going to have great futures. I got to throw Cardano in there. I'm not the biggest Cardano guy, but there are a lot of people that are building on Cardano. So they're definitely not going away. Charles is still there. And you're getting some more fun with Cardano too, with the introduction of memes as well, like Snack, right? So, that kind of like rounds out my top 5, which I know is boring, but I will say this. I'm noticing that there is definitely a big resurgence with games. Like right now, the last, say, month, you're seeing games come up in a big, big way. Existing games and also the new games, the ones that are considered AAA games, the ones that have been in development for a while, right? A lot of people are paying attention to them once again. And I think games could be a big driver in this market because just look at Web2 games, how many millions of users or players there are. And if they could be driven in a Web3 world, that's so much better for the entire ecosystem because we simply don't have any dApp right now that has millions of users. Mm-hmm. And if we could get a game to bring millions of users in, that would be fantastic. So definitely a trend that I'm seeing right now, games coming back. and very hot. And also something else, lastly, are projects that relate to Bitcoin themselves. Like right now, you're seeing ORDI or ordinals really, really hot. A ton of people minting ordinals or inscribing ordinals, should I say. But the token itself, the BRC20 token itself, is so hot ever since Binance listed them. And also stacks, the framework for programmable dApps on top of Bitcoin, very hot. So that I think could be a new trend too. Bitcoin related projects and of course games.
Sure. Yeah, I'm following the same narrative. I've been investing more in the infrastructure, launch pads, and gaming than specific games, just because I think it's a little bit safer. But I'm with you there. So if you had $1,000 as a newbie, obviously it would be a little bit different if you had more money. But if you have just $1,000 and you're coming in right now to the market, how would you split that $1,000 up? What would that allocation be?
Ooh, it depends if I'm a degen or not. Like, if I wanted to, like, okay, if I was 100% degen, I'm like, hey, I have $1,000 to invest, but kind of waste as well. Meaning that, hey, if it goes to zero, it's not gonna affect me in any way, right? I'm just looking to have some fun, and if I catch the right thing, I can make a lot of money. If that was the case, I would look into memes. Okay, memes right now are hot, very hot. So Pepe, was the darling of 2023, and it's still has a lot of fan base. It's still going up. It pumped like 24% today. But you got a lot of the new ones too that are coming up. Bonk is another one on Solana that's coming up. I talked about Cardano. You got Snack on Cardano. You got a whole bunch of new ones that are coming out every single day. Like I would, if I was 100% degen looking for max returns, I would go all into memes. But with that said, memes are very dangerous, very degen, right? Like people watching this, don't interpret that like, yeah, everyone just throw $1,000 into memes. That's not my message. But everyone's situation is different. But if I was coming in looking to learn, wanting to make money, of course, but really looking to learn and establish myself as a long-term investor, I would still follow my 50-25-25 rule, which is 50% in Bitcoin, 25% in big caps, and 25% in everything else. So take that $1,000, $500 in Bitcoin. That's a good, solid investment. 25% in the big caps, which include those L1s, L2s I just talked about, like Solana and Avalanche and Polygon and so forth, right? And that 25%, whatever you want. You want to go into memes, you want to go into games, you want to go into some of these micro caps, right? Infrastructure plays or new L1s, anything like that, that's fine because that 25%, if you get it right, can carry your portfolio in a big way. And same to the mid caps. I mean, the big caps, a lot of the big caps have to go 7 to 10x just to get back to their previous high. So that $500 becomes, or $250 becomes $2,500. And then in Bitcoin still could go up another 5x from here, so that $500 becomes $2,500. I mean, literally, if you do it right, your $1,000 could easily be above 10,000 in this coming cycle. So that's if you're not even being a degen. That's just like you're doing a solid long-term investment.
If you had $100,000, maybe you had been in last market cycle. I heard something interesting, like you don't start making money in crypto until your second cycle, because most people come in at the peak, obviously, and then they lose money. If you had $100,000 though, instead of 1,000, so maybe you could make some life-changing money. Would it change any part of that 50-20-25 or 25-25?
No, actually, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's the beauty with this, because even if you had $1 million to go into, right? No one, unless you're a billionaire, would take $1 million and say, okay, let's throw it all into Pepe. Like no one would do that. You would only do that with small amounts with memes, right?
Yeah.
But if you had 100,000, let's say, it's the same thing. Why would you not put at least 50,000 of that into Bitcoin for the strength of Bitcoin and for some growth, right? It's the greatest store of value there is, and we know that. And then you put 25,000 into the big caps, which can still do, like I said, 7 to 10x just to get back to the previous highs. And then you have $25,000 to do whatever the hell you want. There's a lot of great mid caps too, mid caps, and then small caps and micro caps and memes and games, right? So even at 100,000, I would say that's still a pretty good way to play it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this has been exciting over the last couple of weeks. We're talking about how would you start as a beginner. I think for the first time in probably a year and a half, there are actually new people coming in, like significant amounts of new people. I'm getting people, they're asking kind of newbie questions. Do you have any advice to someone that's coming into the market right now or maybe at the beginning of 2024?
Yeah, I would say be very careful, okay? People love to FOMO. We know that. It's human nature. As the market goes up, we're going to see a lot more FOMO, right? We're going to see a lot of the smaller caps and micro caps and small caps. They just seem like they go up forever. The last few days actually is a pretty good indication of what FOMO looks like. We had a lot of coins go up 20, 30%. In a bull market, that's what happens. Like day in, day out, you see continuous 20, 30% gains on everything, right? But just know that, what goes up comes down. There will be dramatic drops along the way. If you look at the cycle, previous cycles of Bitcoin, even Bitcoin itself has gone down 20, 25, 30, 40% during bull runs, right? And that could scare a lot of newcomers in the space. The newbies, when they come in, they're like, oh, I'm making money left and right. And all of a sudden there's a big drop. They're like, oh man, I got to panic sell, right? Just know that will happen. So whatever you get into, study it, understand why it's going up, understand the value of what you're holding, right? And don't rush in. I always advise DCA, slowly go into it. Mm-hmm. Even if you have a small amount, don't rush in, because if you make a mistake, it's okay. You still have money to DCA and dollar cost average. But if you go all in and you make a mistake and you lose it all, you're like, oh, F this, I'm out, right? Mm-hmm. So slowly do it. And most importantly, last point is, don't ever invest more than what you can afford to lose. So do not invest on a credit card. Do not take out a car, not a car loan, but an equity loan or any kind of loans to play crypto, to invest in crypto, because that's just, no, you don't want to do that. Yeah. Too much pressure.
Yeah, when you do stuff like that, it's not necessarily even the price action that kills you. It's your own brain it freaks out when there's too much on the line. And you could also get it stolen or send it to the wrong address and, not even lose it from price action. One of the things I appreciate about you, George, is that you're so optimistic. I actually, the first time I ever saw your channel was because Bitcoin fell like 5 or 10% over a minute or two. And I just searched, why is Bitcoin falling? This is like way back in the day, years and years ago. And I saw your channel. You're the only one talking about it. But I stuck around because you're so optimistic about crypto. When everyone else in the bear market is talking about how Bitcoin's going to fall to 10,000, 12,000, they're all out. They're going to go all in or start dollar cost averaging when it falls to certain prices. And you say, it could fall further, but I'm going to dollar cost average. This is the smart thing to do. Why are you so consistently positive in crypto?
Well, at the beginning of the stream, I did talk about, my own failings, right? 2008, didn't understand what was going on. Even before that, in the dot-com bubble, 2000, I was investing in stocks. Everything fell. I didn't understand. 2008, I didn't understand. And even 2013 with Bitcoin, when it fell down, I didn't understand. So I finally decided, hey, I'm old enough now. I've been through so many of these crashes. I need to do better, right? What has been the common theme? Me selling out and not continuing forward, holding and DCing. And then I started paying more attention to some of the other people that are out there. The ones that, long-term investors with equities or Bitcoin, the richest people out there are the ones that have basically held the longest. And all these big, gigantic, self-made billionaires, they all come out and say the same thing. I didn't make my billions by outsmart, trying to outsmart the market. I didn't make my billions by day trading. You know, how I made my billions is I buy when things are low and I sell when things are high, or prices, I should say, right? That's every single one. Every self-made billionaire said that. So I'm like, okay, so I put two and two together. I got to learn from my mistakes, and then also look at all these super successful people. What have they done? So I came up, ultimate strategy is HODL plus DCA, and it really works. It does. And time again, you know, like I'll just show, like sometimes I show, you know, like what Michael Saylor has done or what others have done. And sometimes before I used to show like a DCA calculator, like had you DCA'd every single day or every single week, where would you be at, right? And people were quite surprised that, hey, if you just DCA'd every single day the same amount, even at, I think it was like 28,000 or something, you would have broke even already, even if you started buying at the very top. I mean, DCA is just so powerful. It's just that not a whole lot of people follow it, right? So anyways, going back to my point, I'm optimistic because I finally understand what Bitcoin is all about. The more you learn about it, the more optimistic you are about it, the more bullish you are on it. And combine that with the metrics that I look at basically every single day, which shows Bitcoin's fundamentals at an all-time high. And then you combine that with the fact that, yeah, I just learned from my mistakes, knowing that DCA is the way now, right? You put it all together. That's why I'm so optimistic. I don't try to outsmart the market. I don't try to trade the market. I just go with the winning strategy. That's all.
Where do you see Bitcoin going this bull run?
Oh, I see it going very high. Conservatively, like probably like 125 if I was being very conservative. Being ultra bullish, I don't know, maybe even 300, 350. And that's basically in line with everyone else that's bullish too. I just read something about Bloomberg analysts saying 500,000 in a super cycle. And ARK Invest said in the best case scenario in 2030, which is the cycle after this one, Bitcoin will be at 1.5 million, right? Like those are very, very bullish calls. So I would say we're somewhere in there. I would say, let's see where we ended this year. If we end this year in, let's say 50 or 50s, low 50s, and we end, or we get to say 60s and 70s by the halving event, which probably won't happen if we end the year at 50 for sure. But let's say we hit 100,000 by the halving event because we already have spot ETFs. If we're at 100 by the halving event, man, that's only 2024. And that's when you even mentioned rate cuts, you know, are coming in the U.S. Inflation is heading down. The economy is going to start getting back up. We got a presidential election. We may end 2024 at, who knows, 150, 200,000. And then if that's the case, we still got one more year to go, right? It's fun to speculate right now. But, you know, I don't think we have to wait much longer to kind of know. We're already at 42,000. We may head to 45,000 soon, within the next few weeks. And if we're at 45,000, is it unreasonable to think we're going to be at 50,000 by year end? You know?
Yeah.
Things are moving fast now.
Yeah. What about other cryptos? What about like Ethereum or some of those other L1s that you're talking about? Obviously, there are a lot of L1s, but do you have a general idea where those might stack up versus like their previous all-time highs?
I think the good ones, the ones that continue to build and continue to show support and be very active, I think they will get back to their previous high and move further. That's the thing. A lot of people always feel like they need to chase something new, but what already exists is phenomenal. I mean, I was looking at Cardano the other day. Cardano has to do like a 7x or an 8x just to get back to the previous high, okay? Which I am certain it will, but here's the thing. That's just to get back to 2021 high. What about this 2025 high? How much more can it go? Can it do another 2x, 3x, 5x? Sure. Why not? If it did, I don't know what X it did in 2021, but it was a lot of X's, right? If it did that in 2021, why can't it do the same thing in 2025? So, and this is a big cap. This is something that's in the top 10. But imagine all the mid caps out there that's like anywhere from 20 to 100. What are they going to do? They need to do a 10x just to get back to previous high. And then afterwards, they could do another 10x. So 10x on a 10x, that's 100x, right? Like, that's crazy if you think about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think all the other alts will do fantastic. But people have to be patient because normally altcoin season happens toward the latter half of the final year. So I'd say like the second half of 2025 is when things really start moving. But moving up to that point, I think we're going to see explosions, mini altcoin seasons, a lot of pumps, kind of like what we're seeing right now. So
we talked about DCing into the market. I think a lot of people hate talking about selling. Like when we're really frothy, no one wants to hear about a crypto that you're selling. They just want to hear the 5 altcoins that you're buying or whatever. Do you have a plan set up already for getting out of the market, or are you just going to hold through, like you said?
no, I have a plan. It's not a perfect plan, but I developed this recently, and I think it's a really good plan. And people that I tell this to, it kind of opens up their mind. When it comes to taking profits, you're right. It's the hardest thing to do. And so I've come to this realization, like just like in the bear market, you need cash to DCA, right? So in the bear market, I came up with a strategy like, okay, holding about 25, 30, maybe a little bit higher, 35% of your portfolio in cash. And that's good enough to last you for a long, long time through a crypto winter. So that's one of the things I employed this crypto winter, 2022, 2023. I made sure I had enough cash so I could DCA. But then I was thinking, why not apply that in the bull market too? Because as your portfolio goes up, the percentage of cash is going to go down. So your 25% may become 20%, 15%, 10% over time. So that's when you need to take profit. Like when you see that percentage of cash go down, okay, it's at 10%. Let me get it back up to 25% now. So that means I need to sell my winners in order to, replenish, right? And that's what I'm going to do. I see that as a perfectly logical thing to follow in the bull market. As things get hotter and hotter and bigger, pull out, lock in the gains, right? Put it into cash and keep doing so. And as long as you have that, and as we get to 2025, if you wanted to be more conservative, you're like, okay, maybe we start falling. I don't want to see a 70% drop, right? Maybe increase your cash pile from 35% to 50% or 55%, right? But slowly do it so that, hey, you're not in any situation where you're like, okay, I don't know what to do now. Should I take profit? Should I not? Like, are we at a top or peak, right? Just be consistent with that cash pile and maybe start upping it a little bit in 2025 as we get higher and higher. And that's it. You don't have to guess, right? If we happen to have a super cycle after 2025, meaning we don't see a drastic drop and we keep going, you're still fine. You still have a ton that you're holding. But if we happen to go down and you're holding 35%, 40, 50% cash, you're fine. You could be DCAing, at the bottom again, right? So I think that's a good strategy, and that's why I'm going to go follow this cycle.
Awesome. Where can people find you? I'll put links underneath the video, but just for everyone to know, because you have a lot going on right now.
Yeah, just search for me. Well, click on that link in your description or find me at CRYPTOSRUS. No, I was going to say .com, but just go CRYPTOSRUS on Google. You'll see me everywhere on Twitter, on YouTube, obviously, TikTok, Instagram. I'm all over the place. I'm trying to stay busy, trying to grow my brand. But yeah, CRYPTOSRUS.
Awesome. All right, great. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to do this again. I'm sure the next few months will be crazy too. So maybe we try to do it towards the beginning of the new year or partway through, heading up to halving. Thanks so much for coming on, George.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for the invite, and look forward to our next session.